Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Fanfictions and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto cheated death, entered a multiverse of heroes and villains, and built a forbidden harem of human, demon, and alien beauties. Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Funny thing about death, they say when you die, the first thing you see is a bright light and then darkness, and whoever said that was telling the truth, but the only difference about me is that I didn't die per se, I was simply too stubborn to die, and there is a reason for that. To make a long story short, my dad's so-called dead yet still alive student Obito Uchiha, or Tobi as he calls himself, and his master Madara declared war on the shinobi nations in order to revive a demon of great destruction, and I don't mean Kurama because this monster made his attack on the village look like a child's temper tantrum. Anyways, the reason for the whole death experience ordeal. Using my affinity for fuinjutsu, I created one that not only permanently sealed the Jubi away but also one that sent that senile old relic Madara's soul to the afterlife, where I know the Shinigami was dying to get his hands on the bastard's soul. With him gone, me and my girlfriend Satsuki Uchiha had one final confrontation with the nut job and we kicked his butt. Being the sore loser he was, Obito had one final ace up his sleeve. He had marked his whole body with suicide seals that had enough power to destroy an entire island, and the last thing I remember is me using a powerful barrier technique I learned from my mother's scrolls to protect myself and Satsuki-chan, a great explosion, and my chakra mixed with Kurama's, and then nothing. The next thing I know, I'm waking up floating in a tube with multiple tubes attached to me and monitors taking in my heartbeat, but that wasn't the part that freaked me out. It was the fact that nearly half of my body was missing, like my left leg, right arm, left eye, and several of my internal organs were, for better terms, up. But luckily for me and Satsuki-chan, I was saved by a guy named Anthony Evo, who gave me a replacement body to replace the parts of me I've lost to that deranged asshole Obito. I hope he and Madara are rotting for all eternity in the 9th level of hell, but the loss was worth it for my Heim because I already lost one of them to the bastard. But the gain from my new body did increase my natural abilities such as my speed, strength, senses, etc. I won't go into full detail, but the abilities I gained with my enhancements made me feel like I could take on an army of cage-level ninja and have enough energy left to beat the ego out of Madara. After saving my life, I thanked the old man and swore to repay him back in any way I can, because that's the kind of guy the first am, as I always repay my debts, especially if that person saved me from being crippled for life. He didn't ask for much back, just to help him against some goons that are after his brain and his life and nothing more. Now you're all wondering how in the hell I survived. It was thanks to my first friend Kurama, a giant 9-tailed fox who was the closest thing I had to family since the day I could walk and talk. At the cost of his life he saved me and Satsuki from impending death, and the backlash resulted in us being found by Evo. I'm gonna miss the guy, but with his sacrifice, he left me a large portion of his power which fused with mine, and knowing him he'd tell me not to go glum over losing him, or else he'd leave the afterlife and kick my for being an emo. Now that the explanation is done with, let's get on with the story of my new life and the sweet adventures me and Satsuki-chan will partake in. Los Angeles, California. Evo Tech Enterprises. 2 security guards were patrolling the dimly lit hallways of the top floor in the corporation building, looking around for anything suspicious. After checking the place again, they head to the elevator to check the next floor. From the darkness, several black-clad figures snuck through the darkness, avoiding the security cameras and heading to a door with a sign that said CEO office, and noticed the lights in the room were still on. One of the shadows reaches for the doorknob and pushes it open, with the others rushing into the large office, but stop when they see someone who was not Evo leaned back in the chair with his feet crisscrossed and resting on the desk. From his appearance he seemed to be in his late teens to early 20s, with spiky golden blonde hair that stopped to his shoulders with jaw-length bangs. He was garbed in a sleek black suit with matching pants and a pair of black dress shoes, along with a red long-sleeved dress shirt with a black tie with a pair of shades with crimson lenses and gold-colored frames. Picture Alucard's shades from Helsing. Resting against the edge of the desk was a sheathed high-tech HF blade that appeared to be in the Okatana-classed swords. The high-tech scabbard was black with silver tip at the end, while the sword had a dark gray round guard, with the hilt being black with a what appeared to be a red switch near the guard and connected to the hilt with a white cap at the end of the hilt. Jetstream Sam's Muramasa katana. He stared at them for a few seconds before a smile rose on his face. I take it you guys are here for Evo, correct? Naruto questioned but got no answer from the group and chuckles before placing his hands around the scabbard of his sword and slowly getting up to his full height. Unfortunately he's out of town, but I'll be more than happy to leave a message. The black-clad men each responded by drawing their katana from their backs, which made Naruto's smile grow. Oh, so it's that kind of message? Okay, then here's my response. He slowly drew his weapon, revealing a crimson blade that glowed under the moonlight. For those who can guess where I got the idea for the blade gets a cyber cookie lol. So who's first? The next day, Anthony Evo and Satsuki Uchiha had made it back from the business meeting he had with a friend from a star lab. Like Naruto, Satsuki appeared to be in her late teens to early 20s, looking like a teenage version of her late mother Makoto Uchiha, having a fair skin complexion and a slender yet toned build for a female her age. Her hair was black with hints of blue around the bangs that formed on both sides of her face, with her hair tied into a high ponytail and stopping to the middle of her back with onyx-colored eyes that shined in the light. She was garbed in a business outfit with a dark blue jacket and matching skirt that stopped above her knees and left little to hide in terms of her nicely shaped legs and her firm rear, with a pair of black high heels on her feet, and under the jacket was a black dress shirt that was unbuttoned from the top, showing a little cleavage from her D-cupped. As soon as they took the elevator to the first floor and headed to his personal office, they both paused when they saw the door was littered across the floor looking like firewood. They also noticed the body of the shadow assassin, who had a perfectly round circular hole around the area where his heart once was, sprawled against the floor with dried blood around. Good heavens! Evo muttered. Satsuki narrowed her eyes as she glanced at the office and was the first to enter the office, only to see it in shambles, and like the other body, 6 others littered the ground with a few missing limbs or with wide fatal slashes going across their bodies. As she looked around, her gaze stopped at the blonde who was sitting in the middle of the carnage in Ivo's comfy chair, whistling in a nonchalant fashion while polishing Kushinaga, heart of the whirlpool, with a white cloth. The female Uchiha sweat dropped at her boyfriend and coughs to get his attention. Oh hey Haim, hey Evo, how was the trip? He asked in a cheery tone. It was good, for better or worse, Evo answered. Care to explain what happened to my office? Naruto looked around and shrugs. Oh this. They were looking for you, but when I told them you weren't here and asked them to leave, they refused, and well, he did a hand gesture at the scene before him and sheathes his blade. Evo sighs and shakes his head in annoyance. So now they send assassins out for my head, and right when I just got this office redecorated. He muttered. Satsuki, be a dear and call a cleanup crew to take care of this mess. He pulls out a remote device with a blue button on it and presses it, resulting in the wall behind his desk to split and separate, revealing a hidden room that looked like an exact replication of his office. Sure, and Naruto, can't you go one day without causing collateral damage? She questioned with a hint of humor in her voice as she approached him. Naruto responded by raising his hand in a, "It's not my fault" gesture. This wasn't my fault, Satsuki-chan. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not like I asked for trouble. He replied, only for her to chuckle and give him a peck on the cheek. You bring trouble even when it's unintentionally, and speaking of which, I think we need to have a talk with our clients about harming those we care about. Naruto nodded in agreement with the Ravenet. My thoughts exactly. I told them that Evo was off limits, but it looks like I'll need to enforce my words into their brains. How? At the point of your sword, lad? Evo questioned with a brow raised. Naruto stroked his chin in thought before smirking. Nah, that would be too easy for, and besides that's Satsuki's way of threatening our clients, said. Uchiha's brow twitched in annoyance and simply huffed. Since it was true, I'll either double our fee or I could accidentally sabotage any mission they give me. The blonde answered. And speaking of missions, our so-called clients want to meet with us about our next one in a few hours. Unknown location. The two former Leaf Ninja were in a room surrounded by 7 different screens and light with only bright images that represent the silhouettes of the 7 people. Naruto was garbed in what looked like a full black body suit with silver chrome armor around the chest, torso, legs, shins, arms, and shoulders, but instead of being large and bulky like most armor, it was more slim and streamlined, showing off his athletic build that balanced out his speed and strength, and from the appearance was a martial artist, and he was garbed in a pair of black hamaka pants like the ones Seijiro Hiko wears from Rurouni Kenshin, with a belt that had a metallic fox head on it. And over his outfit he wore a dark gray military long coat with red on the inside with a variety of pockets, with a hood over his head that shadowed the upper half of his face, showing the blonde bangs that framed the sides of his face and his cerulean blue eyes. Picture the hoods worn by the assassins from Assassin's Creed. Satsuki's outfit consisted of a black leather ninja outfit with long black gloves, black arm guards and shin guards, with the bodysuit showing her fit athletic frame off nicely. Around her waist was a utility belt of some sorts with a weapons pouch strapped to her hip, along with a chikuto that was strapped into the belt in a diagonal fashion, like Sasuke wore it in Shippuden, and around her neck was a long blue cape with a fan symbolizing her clan, and she wore a mask over the lower part of her face like Kakashi does. So are you two aware of the objectives given? One of the images asked in monotone that carried a voice of authority but not in a calm or arrogant manner. Yeah, but before we do our objective, I have to ask why we're a small group of shadows sent after Ivo's life. Last I recalled we made an agreement that he would be off limits so long as I did a couple of jobs for you. Naruto questioned calmly, but his eyes said otherwise due to the murderous intent laced in them. One of the image responded. My apologies, Fox, they were new recruits who wished to test their worth out in the field. The answer made the blonde hybrid smile, but not in a good way. I see. Well, if that's the case, then they failed and are now chopped up into ground beef by yours truly. Fox stated, and his smile turned into a frown. So if you don't want me to cut down your numbers, or you for that matter, don't do it again, or it's your head I'll be after next. His eyes flashed to red for a few seconds, emphasizing that he was not kidding around. Monsieur Fox, we completely understand, and it will not happen again. Another voice with a French accent replied. For all of your sakes, it better not. Satsuki warned in an icy tone. So long as you keep your end of the deal, no harm will be done to the old man or anyone else you're affiliated with. A feminine voice said. Fine, let's go Heim, we're wasting sunlight. The sooner we get these missions done the better. Star City, Star Lab Facility. Freeze. Don't move. Several security guards had their UMP-45 sub-machine guns aimed at White Fox, aka Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, who was standing before the armed guards. Behind him it looked like a hellstorm went through the large hallway, consisting of countless others being slammed and indented into the wall, as well as having slash marks across their chests and look like they've been beaten senseless but not dead, with the ground littered with ammunitions and guns cut in half. Fox looked them in a nonchalant fashion, holding his sheathed blade Kusanada in his left hand. We will gun you down if you take one more sweet. His lips curl up into a smile and he dashed towards the remaining guards. Fire. They all fired upon the armor-clad ninja, but it was in vain due to his inhuman speed, avoiding every single bullet as he zipped left and right. As he bypassed 2 guards, 2 red streaks hit the guards, causing them to cry out and collapse on the ground. Damn it, he's too fast, arg. He didn't get to finish due being struck down by a vertical slash from the crimson blade and continues with his assault. He knocks the weapon out of the last guard's hand with the swat of the scabbard and draws Kusanada halfway, pressing the sharp edge against the frightened man's neck. Please, don't kill me, he begged. Fox stared at him for a few minutes before smiling and sheathing his blade. The guard sighed in relief but gasps out when the assailant punches him hard in the gut, but only hard enough to knock him out, and he collapsed onto the ground. Didn't plan on it, Fox replied back before heading to the next floor via the elevator to meet up with his partner. Dinah Lance aka Black Canary had come to the facility when she learned of the disturbance and gasped at the sight. In the hallway of the evacuated facility, the broken and bleeding bodies of countless security guards laid across the place. She snapped of her stupor and ran over to one of them, kneels down to check his pulse to find him alive, especially from the painful groan he let out. The heroine reaches up to her ear and presses the comm link. "This is Black Canary, I'm gonna need some assistance at Star Labs," she informed while scanning the damage to the man's body. The suspect is capable of taking down multiple guards and seemed to be armed with a blade, judging from the cuts. They appear to be alive but are in need of medical assistance, so if anyone from the League got this, I'll need backup ASAP. Gunfire echoed from the upper rooms and instantly took off to find a way upstairs to stop the culprit. Fox slammed a guard into a wall, getting a gurgling scream from him. One tried to rush at him with a nightstick when he had his back turned, but the hooded blonde stopped him in his tracks with a kick to the gut without even looking behind him and then threw the guy at the stunned guard. The strength and force behind the throw sent them both crashing into a glass wall into an executive office. Another tried to blindside him, but he easily sidesteps, grabs the guy's wrists and flips him over, sending him flying and crashing into a wall before falling down. Sighing in annoyance, Fox reaches into his hood and presses his comm link. "Hey Haim, you get the chip yet?" Naruto asked his girlfriend while slapping away a punch from another guard and delivering a knee strike to his sternum. "Almost. I just bypassed the last security systems. Good, because I'm starting to get..." He stopped in the middle of his sentence and stopped a boot that would have struck him in the head had he not stopped the appendage with his forearm. He wrapped his hand around the limb and sent the figure flying with a throw, but said person adjusted her figure and landed back onto her feet and got into a fighting stance. "Bored? I call you back." "What? Why, what's going?" He cut the link off and fully turned around to see Black Canary in her fighting stance. "Hello, and who might you be?" "Surely not security, judging from your outfit." He questioned and had to admit she didn't look bad whatsoever, and judging from her physique she trained her body to its peak but kept it perfectly balanced so that her speed or strength wasn't hindered whatsoever. "Black Canary," she answered and noticed the sheathed katana strapped to the left side of his belt. "I take it you're the culprit that did all this. What gave it away? The broken guards and the collateral damage?" Fox asked, sporting a cheeky grin on his face. "As much as I'd like to play with you, beautiful, I'm on a schedule, so..." He slowly reached for the hilt of his blade, causing her to tense up but chuckle. "Relax, I'm not gonna use my blade on you, it goes against my code of honor," he replied. "A killer with a conscience, that's a first," she commented, and once again he chuckled. "Thanks, now if you'll excuse me." With lightning-like speed he drew his sword, releasing a streak of crimson slashes around him. Canary covered her face from the burst of air he released from the slashes, and when she opened her eyes, she saw him in a Batojutsu stance with a crimson blade halfway drawn while the ceiling was outlined with thin reddish-orange cuts, and once he sheathed it with a click, it collapsed, and her eyes widened when a desk and large fax machine descended upon her person. She was forced to jump back lest she gets crushed from the objects. Canary noticed her assailant leaping up to the next floor and dashed to the opening and jumps upwards, grabbing onto the edge, and pushes her full body weight up into the next floor only to see her quarry dashing towards the elevator and goes after him in hot pursuit. Fox smirks as he hears her footsteps. "I admire persistence, lady, but not to this extent," he called out before stopping to draw his blade. He cuts through a nearby pillar twice and kicks the projectile towards the blonde beauty, who managed to somersault over it and land back on the ground, pursuing her target. Fox's smile grows as Kushinada glows red from the energy he channeling into her, and faster than the eye could see, unleashes a series of slashes that looked more like blurs of red energy streaks, and this time, large pieces of debris collapsed from the ceiling and cuts her pursuit off. With that he leapt up into the opening, heading to the roof of the building. Black Canary uses her infamous canary cry, releasing a high-pitched scream and sonic waves that shatter the debris into nothing before stopping and using the broken pillar as leverage to hop up into the next building that lead to the top floor. Fox made it to the top of the building viewing the sunset. A beautiful sight, wouldn't you say? He asked Black Canary, who took a few steps forward and stopped, keeping her distance from her unknown foe. Indeed, too bad it'll be your last after I drag you to jail. She answered back, only to hear the man laugh in a manner like it was a joke. Is that so? Well, since my ride or partner aren't here yet, I guess I can play with you for a bit. He fully turned around with his arms folded, but Canary knew from his posture there was more to him than his mastery with a blade, and could tell this guy was highly trained in hand-to-hand combat like she was. Canary smirks back at him and gets into a karate stance. Her assailant smiles back and gets into the same stance. Shall we dance? Let's. Metal Gear Rising. Revengeance, the only thing I know for real. Jetstream Sam's theme. Ladies first. He insisted, getting a small grin from his fellow blonde. If you insist. She lunges forward, swinging a right jab which he blocked and dodged a series of left and right jabs she unleashed on him. Canary spun in an attempt to do a reversal elbow strike, but Fox stopped it with his palm. He grabbed her arm and flung the heroine over his shoulder and sent her flying. She adjusts her body and lands right back in her feet, skidding back a little. Canary looks up and her eyes widened when she saw a hooded ninja descend at her with a flying kick, forcing her flip to the left. As his foot made contact, the ground cracked underneath the strength behind the kick. Is that all you've got? Fox taunted cheekily. Not even close. Canary answered back. She leapt into the air and performed an aerial spin kick which he blocked with his forearm, but she caught him off guard and struck him in the jaw with a left hook. As she touched the ground, she delivered a roundhouse kick to his chest, making him stumble back. She leaps forward, places her hand on his shoulder and uses it as a spring to leap over his form, land and knock him off his feet with a sweep kick. Luckily, Fox plants his hand on the ground and flips back up on his feet and hops back. Canary get back in her fighting stance while her opponent did the same, with his smile growing bigger. Now this is a fight, he declared, and his fellow blonde raised a brow at the excitement in his voice. For a hired mercenary, your behavior is odd, she replied. Fox simply shrugged his shoulders at the notion. Yeah, I get that a lot, he stated before grabbing the hilt of his sword and spun around, deflecting several trick arrows that were fired by Black Canary's ex-boyfriend Oliver Queen, aka Green Arrow, along with Roy Harper, who goes by the name Speedy. And what do we have here? Robin Hood and his sidekick Quiver. It's Speedy. The red-clad archer snapped back and aimed his glare at Green Arrow, who chuckled at the name. Don't laugh, he insulted you as well. True, but I take being called Robin Hood as a compliment, even though I don't steal from the rich and give to the poor. Green Arrow replied back, while Canary and Speedy had to resist the urge to roll their eyes. Nevertheless, give it up, buddy, or we'll have to. A blur landed in between two, being none other than Satsuki, who knocked Green Arrow off his feet with a sweep kick and hits the ground hard, surprising Roy and Dinah. The young archer didn't have time to react as she grabbed him by the collar and knees him hard in the gut, making him cough out before she leapt over him and kicked him the back of the head, making him fall on all fours. Fox took this opportunity to vanish and appear in front of a distracted Canary and delivers a powerful palm strike to her stomach, and sent her flying backwards and hitting the ground hard. Well, hello to you too, Heim. Fox greeted as the Ravenet landed before him and then elbowed him in the gut. Ow, what was that for? You cut me off again and I'll cut you off from seeing all of this, she warned her boyfriend, who blushed in embarrassment and rubbed the back of his head. Hey, sorry, I was a little sidetracked by the sexy lady chasing me. Satsuki glanced at Black Canary and rolled her eyes. I figured as much, she mumbled before pulling out a flare stick and lights it up, releasing a green smoke and waves it around. A few minutes later, the sound of a blade's whirling could be heard and a chopper descended from the sky and a ladder drops from the hatch, and Satsuki is the first to grab it. Oh no you don't, Speedy shouted as he and his mentor pull out a couple of trick arrows and take aim, but Fox reacts faster and pulls two demon windmill shuriken out and flings them at the archers, and the whirling blades slice through their bows, much to their shock, and the projectiles return back to the user. Fox grabs the ladder and waves bye to the heroes as the chopper took off into the air. Song ends. After getting settled in the chopper, Naruto pulls his hood down and lets out a sigh with his okatana leaned against the wall while Satsuki pulled her mask down and pulls out a case containing a blue and black data chip. "So what took you so long to get that little trinket, Haim?" the blonde asked the female Uchiha. "Security's a bitch," was her answer, getting a chuckle from him. "I bet it was. Say, why is it that you get to do the snatch and grab while I have to deal with security?" he questioned, and she responded with a deadpanned expression. "Because you'd get bored, sticking to the shadows, Naruto-kun, and if I remember, you almost had the entire Yakuza organization out for blood during our mission in Tokyo," she informed the blonde. "Oh yeah, I remember that, but you killed the chairman, so wouldn't that be your fault?" "I just cut down a couple of grunts and lieutenants, but you Ms. Uchiha took out the king," he reminded her. Satsuki pondered on it and shrugged with her legs crossed. "That was personal. I was disguised as a dancer for his entertainment, and the fat pig grabbed my..." A coy smile formed on her face as she saw his brow twitch. "Maybe next time you could be the dancer." Naruto raised a brow and shook his head. "Nah, I'll stick with stalling security, because if some fat greasy guy grabbed my, I'd go on a rampage and need therapy afterwards," he replied while his girlfriend giggled. Washington, D.C. Cadmus facility. After handing the chip to one of the pilots, the duo were taken over to an abandoned warehouse where a red 2012 Camaro was waiting for them. "Shall we?" Naruto asked, and his girlfriend nodded. They perform a hand sign, engulfing them in a puff of smoke, and when it cleared, they were now in their business outfits, with Satsuki wearing a pair of black shades over her eyes. The agent, waiting for them, tossed Naruto the keys and left. "It's a shame we can't take in the sights, but business comes first," the blonde stated. "There's always next time," Satsuki said as he hit the unlock button while she entered through the passenger seat. Once Naruto got in and turned the ignition on, they were given the coordinates to the Cadmus building via the built-in GPS unit and took off into the roadway. Underground Cadmus facility. Satsuki's right hand was twitching in a dangerous fashion due to the fact that Mark Desmond, the head of the Cadmus facility, gave her and Naruto a tour of the place and explained the experiments and projects that needed to be protected, despite informing the middle-aged man several times and was tempted to wring his neck just to shut him up. Fox mentally chuckled at her annoyed and slightly pissed expression, but also took in the sights, seeing the staff at work, and also noticed some bizarre gray-skinned creatures called genomorphs in cylindrical tanks and seemed to be powering up the generators. There were a few who also appeared to be the size of elephants that seemed to be used for the heavy labor, some that were human-sized and seemed to be security, with the smaller bio creatures being the size of small monkeys, and from the way their horns glowed red, they were probably used in communication purposes and for giving orders to their kin. As Desmond went on about the achievements, Naruto interrupted with a cough. "It's nice to hear yourself talk, Doc, but care to explain about the bizarre creatures you've got lurking about the place?" Desmond scowled at being interrupted but decided not to retort back. "You mean the genomorphs. They are my greatest creations, created with the purpose to do my bidding and protect Cadmus." One of the gnomes landed on his shoulder and stared at the two ninja. Satsuki rolled her eyes, but then another landed on her shoulder. She picked it up by the scruff of its neck and stared at the creature, who tilted its head to the side before being placed on the ground. "You know, when you get past the bizarre appearance, they look kind of cool," Fox stated in amusement as the gnome once again climbed up on her arm and sat back on her shoulder. "I think it likes you, Haim." She glanced at the bioengineered creature and shrugged, stroking the genomorph under the chin with a finger, and got it to purr in content which Desmond didn't like if the scowl he had on his face wasn't noticeable. "The gnomes are not cute," Desmond growled, "and as for you, get back to scouting the area and maintaining surveillance with the others." The creature yipped out in fright and scuttled back to the ceiling. "Now that was rude, yelling at the poor fella like that," Fox said while the man tilted his glasses upwards. "It matters not. That thing is an item, a tool to do my bidding and will do as told or else, and the same goes for anyone under my authority. He said in a matter-of-fact tone. Really? That's odd because my partner and I aren't under your employment, Desmond, so you have no authority over us. Fox replied back. Desmond frowned and was about to retort at the man until an armored gloved hand grabbed his collar and was pulled close to the blonde's face, much to his surprise, but it soon turned to fear as he saw the icy stare that sent a shiver down his spine. We don't answer to you, we answer to a higher authority, and our objective is to enhance security and nothing more. You let us do our job and you do yours and we'll be fine, but cross either one of us and you'll wish you've never been born. Fear laced Desmond's eyes as he saw Fox's flash red for a second before returning to their natural blue. Do we have an understanding, Doc? Why yes, I completely understand. He answered with a slight whimper in his voice, and Fox released him. Good, now would you be so kind as to show us what we'll be protecting exactly, seeing as your little gremlins are scurrying about? The man nodded with a slight scowl on his face and motioned them to follow him down a hallway that seemed to be laced in a flesh-like substance with what appeared to be eggs rested against it. And here I thought Orochimaru's labs were creepy, Satsuki thought, noticing the curled-up form of a gnome sleeping in the pods. They approached a large steel door and Desmond proceeds to type in the code from the panel until the light blinks green and the door hisses open. They enter a laboratory and the doctor lead them to what appeared to be a crystal cylindrical tank with the Kerr symbol on the front. This is what you'll be protecting. In the tank, lying down on a metal table in a sleeping state, was a girl who from appearance seemed to be around 16 to 17. She had long raven hair that stopped to the middle of her back, along with a slight heart-shaped face that made her both cute and fierce, and completing it was one voluptuous figure that was very desirable. She was taller than normal girls her age and was garbed in a full-body white suit that left her forearms and hands bare, and said suit hugged her figure, showing some muscle that gave her an Amazonian look that added to her facial features made her look like a younger Wonder Woman, and also noted the large red S shield around her impressive D-cups. He couldn't help but whistle at the sleeping girl. Hey Haim, if you happen to have a long-lost sister, I think we found her and she's cute just like you. The female Uchiha smiled under her mask at the response, since this Supergirl did look just like her, only her physique was more toned. She is not cute as you call her. It is a weapon and like the gnomes a tool to fulfill my purpose. Desmond rudely replied and didn't notice the glare Satsuki was giving him from behind his back. Well, I think she is cute, Doc. He walked around the tank, studying her form. Judging from the symbol on her chest, she's either related to the big blue Boy Scout or a clone, but if she's a clone, shouldn't she be a male? Indeed, but due to some minor adjustments, the clone's genetic structure was altered, mainly because the female species of any race tend to mature faster than males. It was very difficult to change her genetic make since her donor's DNA structure being different. He spoke in a way that sounded like he was proud of his achievement. Her original purpose is to be Superman's replacement should he die, or kill him if he ever turned from the light. Right now the gnomes are educating her via telepathy with every form of the planet's history and knowledge, which will allow her to interact socially. Fox rubbed his chin in thought as he noticed the two gnomes perched on top of the tank with their horns glowing red. Suddenly the lights flashed red and alarms were going off. Odd, I didn't think fire drills were practiced in an underground facility. There are intruders in the facility. Hurry up and deal with it. He would have ranted on until Satsuki's glared at him with cold onyx eyes. Didn't we just have this conversation earlier, stating that we are not your security guards? If you want these so-called intruders dealt with, have the head of security guardian deal with them along with your bioengineered pets. Fox remarked as he wasn't interested in dealing with some small-time thieves. Fine, just make sure the weapon isn't disturbed while I check into this, Desmond said, barely keeping his anger in check, and heads out of the chamber. I'm going to kill him after this mission is done, Satsuki says in an annoyed tone while Naruto chuckled. Trust me Haim, the world would be a better place if you did so. From the barely lit ceiling, a gnome lands on his shoulder, "Hey little guy, want to keep us company?" The G-gnome lets out a gurgling noise that he believed sounds like a yes and got a chuckle from the hooded blonde while Satsuki shook her in amusement as she watched him interacted with the creature. Moments later, Fox was meditating on the other side of the room while Satsuki was upside down on the ceiling using her chakra to stick on the surface with her arms folded under her chest and her eyes closed. Earlier, one of the doctors who was under orders from Desmond to check on the stature of the female cloned Kryptonian, under the control of a G-gnome due to the blank expression on her face, and after doing so left through the large metal door. Fox, the meditating blonde's eyes snapped open and narrowed as he heard the voice. "Do not be alarmed, I am XX, a genomorph like my brethren who was created by Desmond to fulfill Cadmus's purpose." "Well, it's nice to meet you, somewhat, but don't you know it's considered an invasion of privacy to enter someone's mind without their permission?" Fox questioned. "My apologies, I have no intention of doing any harm to you or your partner, but I do require your assistance. It has to do with Project Kerr, my sister who like us was created by Desmond." "Okay, what do you want?" Fox asked the telepathic genomorph, but heard the doors were open. "Hold that thought, I've got some uninvited guests." "Very well, but please leave the young heroes intact." Fox slowly rose up and picked up his sword, stepping backwards into the shadows as the doors fully opened with Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad entering the lab. Satsuki saw them enter watching from the ceiling and slowly reached for the hilt of her Chikudo, preparing to attack, but glanced at Naruto, who did a hand gesture that told her to not attack for the moment, and she silently nodded. As the door closed behind them, Robin disabled the door by hacking through their network using his hologram computer to keep Guardian and the bioengineered creatures out, but unfortunately they were unable to find another way out, so they were trapped. "There, the door is disabled. We're safe," Robin assured them. "And trapped," Aqualad finished as he didn't see an exit in this room. Guys," Kid Flash called out, getting their attention. "You might want to see this." He proceeded to press some keys from a modulator that was in front of some type of pod. A beeping sound came from the pod and it then lit up. The three sidekicks' eyes widened when they saw who was in it. "Whoa," was all Kid Flash managed to say, while Robin and Aqualad remained stunned as they saw Project Kerr resting soundly in the tank. "I'll say, who is she?" Robin wondered before noticing the S symbol on her chest. "That's Superman's symbol." Aqualad narrowed his eyes in suspicion and wondered the same thing. "It's possible she's related to him, and if she is, we need to get her out of this facility," he said. "And how do you plan to do that?" The group heard the voice around the lab and were now on alert. "Who's there?" Aqualad called out, only for the source of the voice, aka Fox, walked out of the shadows smirking at the teenage with his hand resting on the hilt of Kushinaga. Well, if it isn't the sidekicks. Care to explain why you're trespassing on private property?" he questioned. Robin was the first to snap out of his stupor and glare at the hooded man. "Care to explain who you are and what she is?" The boy wonder replied back, getting prepared to fight should the situation require him to. Fox simply rubbed his chin in thought and shook his head. "No, I don't feel like telling you who she is, but as for me, the name's Fox and I'm here to enhance security for this facility, and as I mentioned earlier, you three are trespassing on private property, and as such I am entitled to deal with you in any way, shape, or form, and considering the situation you're in, I'd advise you to surrender," he suggested. "And if we don't?" Kid Flash questioned. A grin forms on Fox's face and responds by pushing his thumb up on the guard, revealing a glimpse of his favored weapon. "Then I hope the Justice League provides a good life insurance policy for sidekicks." Fox finished as his grin became feral, eyeing the young heroes like a wolf when it corners a lamb with no way out. "It appears we have no other choice but to fight," Aqualad states and draws his water bearers with the hardened water shaping into a pair of blades. Kid Flash on the other smirks triumphantly. "Hey, this'll be over quickly." With that, the redhead rushes at him at speeds that would make Rock Lee and Might Guy proud, but being a speed demon himself, Fox noticed his movement was too straightforward and predictable, which in his opinion was bad for the speedster. So with a slight adjustment of his foot, He turned sideways as the yellow blur zipped past him. KF cursed and tried to stop but sadly crashed into the wall, hard. Satsuki saw this from the ceiling and a sweat drop formed behind her head. That was pathetic, she thought as Kid Flash groaned in pain. Next, Robin responded by throwing several shuriken at the hooded blonde, who easily deflected them all with his sheathed blade before grabbing the last one in between his index and middle finger. He was about to speak out until he heard something beeping and looked at the throwing weapon, which was blinking red before turning green and unleashes a small explosion, releasing smoke around the area while the boy wonder smirks. "Is that all you've got?" His eyes widened when he heard Fox, who stood behind Robin with his back turned to him, sporting a bored expression on his face. Robin pulls out a pair of Eskrima sticks and was about to spin around to strike Fox in the back, but the sword-wielding warrior was faster and struck him in the back with a strong roundhouse kick that sent him flying and crashing through an empty tank and into the wall. Robin. Aqualad ran forward to go assist his friend, only to block a red blur that would have cut him in two. Naruto smirks at the Atlantean with Kusanada pressed against the water-hardened blades and pushed him back. And then there was one, "Do yourself a favor, kid, and surrender." He insisted. "Never, I'm not going down that easily," Aqualad declared, getting into his fighting stance and readying his weapons. Fox sighs and rolls his neck a few times. "Suit yourself." He twirled his blade a few times in a nonchalant fashion before slamming the tip of it into the hardened floor. He places his left hand around the lower part of the hilt and dashes forward, raking his blade across the ground. As soon as he got close, he performed an upward slash at the dark-skinned Atlantean, who leapt back, barely dodging the blade that would have cut him in two. Fox then adjusted his blade and swung downwards twice while Aqualad was on the defensive, blocking the two-hit combo before jumping back again when the hooded blonde spun around and attempted to hit him with a horizontal slash. "Come on, kid, is that all you've got?" Fox taunted as he delivered a thrust towards Aqualad. The water bearer in his left hand morphed into a shield and blocked the attack and skids back a little. Aqualad decides to go on the offense and rushes at Fox, swinging the water-shaped blade at his armored chest, but Fox easily evades the strike by hopping to the left with a small grin on his face. The dark-skinned teen willed the shape of the blade into a whip and swung it in a wide arc. Fox ducks as it sails over his head, only for another water whip to wrap around his ankle, and cries out in surprise as he was zapped with electricity that was conducted through the glowing eel tattoos on Aqualad's arm. Fox raised his blade and swung it downwards, cutting the whip off and dispersing the water from the tip. "Hey, now that was shocking," he commented. "Not bad, kid, you're well trained in art of combat, you've got potential, but you're lacking something very important." Aqualad raised a brow at this statement and was about to respond, only for Fox to appear in front of him in a burst of speed, catching him off guard and struck him in the face with the hilt of his sword, making him stumble back. He then grips the scabbard halfway and swings it to the left, hitting the 16-year-old protege of Aquaman in the back, causing him to spin before facing him again as the hooded blonde swung the sheathed blade upward and struck him hard in the chin. The force behind it sent him flipping back and hitting the ground hard, groaning as his jaw throbbed from being struck with the hard sheath despite his skin being more durable than a normal human's. "And the thing you lack, young hero, is drive." Aqualad gets back up, rubbing his jaw, keeping his eyes on his opponent. "What do you mean?" Fox simply stares at him and shakes his head. "Forget it, you'll find out soon enough, that is if you live to see the next sunrise." He answers, drawing his blade once again, unaware of the sleeping girl slowly waking up from the pod. In the lab, the sounds of a beatdown echoed through the area. Aqualad cried out in pain as he was sent flying through an empty tank and into the wall before sliding down, groaning in pain and losing his bearers. Kid Flash attempts to rush Fox using his super speed, only to get snatched by the back of his collar, spun around and slammed into the ground. Before he had the chance to get up, his quarry planted his foot onto his chest hard, making him gasp out as the wind was knocked out him. The cyborg warrior sighs in disappointment while his crimson-colored blade rested on his shoulder. "You do realize I'm not even trying, right?" he informed the pinned speedster, who tried to pry his foot off his chest. Robin flings several batarangs at him and he nonchalantly cuts them down with a few lazy swings, though the last one erupted into smoke. Taking this opportunity, Robin leaps into the smoke in an attempt to blindside Fox, but to his surprise, a black and white armored boot shoots out and strikes him directly in the gut. The protege of the Dark Knight gasps as he flew off and crashes into the ground, clutching his stomach in pain and trying to prevent himself from letting out what he had for breakfast. As the smoke cleared, it revealed Fox yawning in a bored fashion. Placing his foot back on the floor remained on a wheezing Kid Flash, who looked like he was gonna pass out if the hint of blue on his face was a notice. Aqualad sprung back to his feet and rushes as Fox with his electricity arching around his arms, only to be on the receiving end of a volley of what looked like glowing Sinbon hitting him in non-vital spots, but he cried out in surprise and a little pain due to his physiology being more durable than normal human skin, and hits the ground and lays there, unable to move his body due to the electricity numbing his central nervous system. Satsuki landed beside her partner, glancing at the down heroes. "So what should we do with them? How about letting us go?" Kid Flash requested with what little air he could muster due to the armored foot nearly crushing his lungs and ribcage. Fox on the other hand smirks at the lame request. "Nice try, kid," but he would said more, but he was tackled hard by a white blur and sent crashing into the wall hard, freeing Kid Flash from capture. Satsuki's eyes widened and leapt back in order to avoid a flying fist and landed next to Fox. "Ow," he muttered, rubbing his head in pain from the impact that felt like he was hit by a high-speed tank. He got up to see what hit him, and it was none other than the angry form of Supergirl. Wally sat up, catching his breath before smiling and approaching the female Kryptonian. "Thanks for the save, beautiful, that guy nearly crushed me," he said gratefully, reaching out and placing a hand on her shoulder. As soon as she felt contact, she backhands him in the face and once again he's in La La Land. "Wow, that poor kid just can't catch a break, and neither can I," Fox mumbled as picks himself, and his gaze meets the enraged ones of the female Kryptonian. The stare down lasted for a few seconds until a smile crept up Fox's lips. "Hey, nice eyes." That compliment resulted in Supergirl snarling like an angry tiger and charges at them both. Satsuki shuntions to the left while her partner remained in a loose stance, ready to draw his sword, and contemplates on how he should handle her. He could incapacitate her with his blade, but he didn't really want to deal with the light or that prick of a doctor to bitch about him breaking their weapon, and mentally sighs and sheathes his weapons. She throws a punch at him, but he jumps over it and does a front flip over her form, resulting in the Ravenette's fist slamming into the wall, creating a large crater in the process while the whole room shakes. Damn, if she had blonde hair then she'd be a teenage version of Tsunade Ba-chan. He thought as she pulled her arm out of the crater she caused. She glares at him and rushes at him again, swinging a series of left and right hooks that he dodged and weaved around, sporting his smirk, which infuriated her more. Rah! She swung another right hook which Naruto avoided, but this time he wrapped both hands around her wrist and judo flips her over his shoulder and send her crashing into the crystal tank she was previously in and reducing it to nothing. She gets up again, snarling in anger at the blonde warrior who chuckled at her. "You're gonna have to do better than that, Missy," he taunted. She rushes at him once again and swings another wild punch at his skull, which he somersaults over and lands behind her. She attempts to backhand him, but he ducks and knocks her off her feet, and Supergirl hit the ground. "Come on, little girl, if you're gonna hit me then hit me," he says. Satsuki on the other hand was watching this one-sided fight with boredom. Sure, the cloned female Kryptonian had all the powers of her donor, but she lacked control, and without control, bystanders would get killed. Supergirl's eyes glow red and fires two red beams at Fox. The hooded blonde draws his blade and deflects the twin beams, which cut through the floor like a hot knife through butter. "Beautiful eyes, deadly gaze," he commented before taking off in a burst of speed and vanishes. He appeared before a surprised Supergirl with his right hand reared back, grabs her face, and slams her heads first into the ground. But terrible aim. Fox picks her up and throws her into the vault door the young heroes entered through. She shakes her head from the impact and glares at his smirking face, and all it did was piss her off more, so she hovered in the air, turns around and grabs the valve. The sound of metal straining echoed through the room as Supergirl slowly pulled the large steel door out until she successfully did so and held it over her head. At first Fox was surprised at the level of her strength as she held an object 10 times her size, but then sported a serious look with Satsuki appearing beside him with her Chikudo drawn and her Sharingan activated. The duo glance at each other and nodded, and the female Uchiha channels lightning chakra through her blade to increase its cutting power, and Fox draws Kusanada and it glows red. Grah! Supergirl throws the vault door at them like it was a pebble. Satsuki and Fox vanish and appear as the vault seemed to fly past them with their blades drawn, and the 10-inch thick steel door was reduced to chunks of metal that clattered everywhere, leaving the girl of steel stunned, unaware that Fox was gathering energy into his right palm, which took the shape of a spiraling ball, while Satsuki's entire left arm was coated in lightning. They descended to her shocked form and thrust their arms forward. Rasengan. Chidori. Their signature attacks slam directly into her torso. Electricity and waves of energy dance around the lab from the colliding attacks, and Supergirl is jettisoned out the lab and into the hallway. The duo land on the ground as they hear a crash rock the place, and they sheath their swords. Fox whistled lowly at the damage they caused before turning his gaze at the entrance and sighing in annoyance. "Why am I not surprised?" he muttered. Satsuki blinked in confusion, wondering what he meant, and turns her head in the direction he's looking, only to see Supergirl slowly trudge back into the lab. She didn't look worse for wear, minus her hair being a little ruffled and messy, as well as the rips in her solar suit, especially around the torso where it was torn, revealing her flat and toned stomach. Aqualad, Kid Flash, and Robin were slowly regaining consciousness from their beat down by the hooded blonde. "Aw man, did someone get the number of the freight train that hit me?" the speedster asked while rubbing his throbbing jaw from the punch delivered by Supergirl. Robin was too busy looking at the destruction caused by their quarries. "Guys, I think we're in way over our heads with these two, and a tactical retreat is in order," the boy wonder states. "Agreed," Aqualad replied. "What he said, and all we have to is get past them, damn," KF muttered in the end, due to Fox and Satsuki standing in between them and their hope for escape along with Supergirl. "Persistent are we?" Fox questioned the growling clone, who looked ready to charge and would have if AG Gnome hadn't hopped on her shoulder and used its telepathy to make her freeze up and stand at attention with a blank expression on her face. "What is going on here?" Desmond shouted as he, XX, and Guardian entered what's left at the lab, and the Mad Doctor looked like he was gonna blow a blood vessel. "I told you two to protect the weapon, not fight it. Shut your pie hole, you old coot." She woke up cranky and angry when I was duking it out with the brats. Fox retorted back, "Hey, we're not brats," Kid Flash shouted, but his mouth was covered by Robin's hand. "Probably not a good idea to piss off the guy who can chop us up into hamburger." Robin growled through his teeth. "You two imbeciles were given orders to watch the weapon, but you can't even follow that," Desmond exclaims as he approached them. "When the board gets notice of this incident, it'll be your heads they take and not mine." Fox's brow twitched dangerously due to the man poking him in the chest, and if there was one thing he hated was some pencil neck prick talking down to him like he was lower than dirt. "Poke me again and that arm will no longer be attached to your body," the blonde said quietly in a tone so dark it would make even the Dark Knight shiver, which the doc did, taking a slight step back before glaring at him. "Just deal with those intruders," he says, getting a nod from the blonde. Aqualad, Robin and Kid Flash tense up when they watch him turn around and draw his blade. "Sure, just do me favor, Doc." He twirled his blade a few times before pausing. The others wondered why he stopped until he spun around and thrusts his blade towards the middle of Desmond's chest. Squelch. Odge. Everyone's eyes widened in shock or horror from Fox's action as he ran Kusanada through the middle of Desmond's chest cavity and out his back. The man's body trembled as he stared at the blade impaled into his body and back up to see the hooded figure's eyes. "Why you?" You can't. He coughed up some blood and fell to his knees, feeling his vision fade and life blood staining his clothes. You know the only reason you're alive is because your bosses still had use for you. I on the other hand just don't like you, so it's no skin off my nose. He pulled the blade out of the soon-to-be dead doctor and kicks him into a terminal and approaches the still form of Supergirl. Okay little guy, let her go. He gives the genome a gentle pat on the head and its glowing horns recede. Supergirl and Garden groan as they attempt to regain their senses. What happened? She wondered. Whoa, it can talk. Kid Flash stated, only to be on the receiving end of a glare. Yes, she can talk. Supergirl growled at the yellow and red-clad speedster. Word to the wise, don't render someone who can melt your head off with a glare or snap you in two like a twig in that term, Fox advised. Now what to do with you three? He rubbed his chin in thought as he pondered on their fates before looking at Satsuki, who shrugged her shoulders. How about letting us go with our limbs intact? Kid Flash suggested. The hooded blonde gazed at him and the other two for a while until his lips curve upwards into a smile. Okay, if you think we're gonna let you gut us open like you did that other guy, then you got another thing. Calm. Robin paused in his rant and blinked rapidly at the guy. Wait, what did you say? Robin asked and Fox's smirk grew. I said okay, on one condition though. Fox requested. And that request is? Aqualad questioned with narrow eyes and watched him approach the Ravenet, who blinked in confusion as he set a hand on her shoulder. Take her with you. Fox turned her around and gently pushed her towards the three young heroes. Even though my orders from my clients were to guard her, I think she'll be better off with you three than spending the rest of her life as a weapon until her use is no longer needed. Isn't that right, XX? Naruto questioned to the human-sized xenomorph, who nodded in agreement. Correct. XX answered. Sister, your purpose is not to live in the darkness like we have to. You have the opportunity to leave and create your own life. But, Cadmus is my home. She replied back, only for Satsuki to shake her head in a negative fashion. A home is a place where you feel safe and not locked away like a lab rat, she replied to the cloned Kryptonian, but it is your choice to either stay here or feel what it's like to be free. Supergirl looks at Fox first, then Satsuki, Aqualad, Robin, Kid Flash, XX and the other gnomes that gathered. I choose freedom, she answered and got a nod of approval from her brother. Fox smiles warmly and pulls down his hood, revealing his face to the others, and Supergirl's cheeks turn slightly pink from seeing his handsome yet feral facial structure. Then go and find your purpose out in the world, Supergirl, but know this. Somewhere in your life you will come through a crossroad on what you truly desire, so don't let others choose your life, you must do so yourself. He advised and got a nod from her, though having friends to help you would be beneficial. Now get going, the exit's not too far from here. The young hero carefully passed Fox, just to make sure he wouldn't stab them in the back, but Supergirl stops and looks back at him before joining up with the others. Once they were gone, Fox walks over to Guardian, who was still feeling the migraine in his cranium, and pats him on the shoulder. You're gonna need a whole bottle of aspirin to get rid of that headache, buddy. He joked with the armor-clad hero, smiling weakly. Make it two, my head will be throbbing for weeks. He muttered while slowly getting back on his feet. So what will happen to Cadmus now that Desmond's out of the picture? Beats me, but I think you would be better taking charge of this Kami-forsaken place so long as you don't permit any illegal experiments. Fox answered back as he placed his hood over his head again. Noted, but the only issue is the xenomorphs. I don't want them to be terminated, they were just following orders from Desmond, but I don't want myself or the associates who work here to be under control. Fox rubbed his chin in thought for a bit until an idea popped in his head. I think I might know someone who would be interested in having some little helpers around. He answered. Satsuki noticed the gleam in his eyes and sweat dropped. Is he thinking what I think he's thinking? She thought. Guardian gave the hooded blonde a questionable look, wondering who he had in mind. And who exactly would be interested in us, Mr. Fox? XX wondered as the blonde's grin grew even bigger. XXXXX. I can't believe I allowed you to talk me into this, Naruto. Ivo says as he watched the Genomorphs work on the underground city being constructed. G-Trolls were working on moving large pieces of debris and clearing out the area while the G-Sprites were lighting up the ceilings. The G-Gnomes were communicating with them via telepathy while the elves were moving the smaller pieces of debris. Well, I couldn't just leave them to fend for themselves, Ivo. Naruto said as he adjusted his shades. Plus Satsuki-chan made a new friend. Sitting on the female Uchiha's shoulder was a G-Gnome that was purring happily due to Satsuki stroking its chin in a gentle manner with her fingers. Apparently when they were transferring the Genomorphs to Ivo's underground bunker where he keeps all his top-secret projects, the little gray creature hitched a ride in Naruto's coat pocket. Naruto figured they deserved a place to call home after being used as tools by the now-late Doctor, and Guardian remained in charge of Cadmus and assures the Genomorphs that wished to stay at Cadmus, though his clients weren't too happy when they were informed of the incident. Flashback. This is most unsettling, Mr. Fox, Luther says behind the light visage. Killing Desmond is one thing but allowing the sidekicks to take Project Cur is another. Fox and Satsuki were in a darkened room surrounded by several light screens. Desmond was more of an annoyance, but as for your precious weapon, I was only informed to guard her and nothing more, and also you have the now late Desmond and yourselves to blame for giving her the option to think for herself. Fox replied back in an even tone, showing he was not afraid to speak his mind before them. Besides, sooner or later she would have gotten out of your grasp and nothing short of Superman would be able to stop her, and the results would have been bad if the Justice League got notice of Cadmus's activities. Monsieur Fox does make a valid point, Brain stated. We should have been more thorough with Desmond in her programming and become our greatest asset against the heroes, no. Indeed, a deep baritone voice said, the loss of Supergirl is just a minor setback and we will get back on schedule. Were you able to retrieve the formula during the tour of the facility? Fox shuffled into his coat pocket and pulls out a small square case and pops it open, revealing several vials of a light blue liquid that was contained in several cylindrical glasses. Yeah, I got the vials and they're in good condition as promised. Hey, so the Fox manages to get something done right, a snooty, arrogant voice said in a gleeful fashion which annoyed the blonde and his partner. Watch it, witch boy, I have no problem shaving you or that demon cat of yours. Fox warned while patting the hilt of his blade. Whoa, you've got some nerve, you. Enough, we didn't come to start meaningless squabbles, a calm, collected voice says and ignores the grumbling of the witch boy. Before this meeting ends, I'm curious why you two didn't kill the sidekicks. Your combined skills would have been more than enough to eradicate them off the face of the earth. I have a good reason for that. 1. I don't need the Justice League targeting us, and while I am capable of taking down 4 or 5 of them, the whole group would have been a problem even for us, Fox answered. 2. They possess a lot of potential and can prove to be a challenge for us in the future, and lastly, they didn't pose a threat to your motives. Not now they don't, but they could prove to be an even greater threat than the League, and should they, then you two will be held responsible. The female voice advised. Fox chuckles darkly before pulling down his hood and looking back up at the screens, revealing his demonic eyes that glowed red, and smiled viciously. Don't make threats you can't keep, lady. I'm the last person on this planet you want to piss off. He said in a tone so dark, his clients remained silent, though a few were cringing from his murderous gaze. Now if you'll excuse us, we have some business to take care of. After placing the case down on the floor, Fox and Satsuki walked into the shadows while the screens dissipated as well. Flashback end. That aside, the bioengineered creatures seemed to be taking their new home well and had more freedom than they did in Cadmus, so all seemed well for now. XXXXX. Los Angeles docks. 3 thugs were swerving wildly inside a moving truck with the tires screeching as the large vehicle made a sharp turn to the left. Damn it, that hooded clown took out 3 of our guys with no problems. Thug 1 seethed as the driver decided to slow down a bit. Yeah, but I think we lost him. Thug 2 said in relief. Same here, I think we're good. Unfortunately for the thug, they weren't okay. Zipping around the opposite side on a red and black Yamaha motorcycle was Fox, who took off towards the truck at high speeds. "Oh shit, there he is. Run him over," the third one shouts. The driver nods and presses his foot down on the accelerator. The truck's speed increases as it revved across the road with the intent of crushing the blonde. Fox smirks as he approaches the large vehicle, and once they were close enough, he swerves quickly to the left and draws Cushionata swiftly and slashes through the side. The left side of the truck tilts and skids across the road, turning sideways and crashing into several wooden crates with the men inside screaming in fear. They were unaware of a large square containment unit flying out of the cargo hold and tumbling on the ground until it came to a stop while the truck crashes into a barge. Fox brings his motorbike to a halt as he watched the truck crash and parks it before strolling over to the thieves with his blade perched on his shoulder. One thug came falling out of the broken door, groaning in pain and trying to shake the cobwebs out of his head, unaware of Fox approaching him until he looks up at the man's smirking face. His eyes widen and notices his gun laying a few feet in front of him. He was pondering on whether to grab it or not, only for the hooded blonde to crush the weapon under his foot. The thug looks up and gulps as he saw the man inspect his crimson-colored blade in a nonchalant fashion. "A little late for shopping, don't you think? Trying to make a quick buck out of whatever you were trying to steal, or did someone hire you to rob a truck fully of advanced technology?" Fox questioned as he still kept his eyes on his blade. This is our gig. We wanted to make some cash with the stuff we took, and he did," continue due to the blade planting right beside his head while Fox shook his head in disappointment. He crouches down in front of the trembling thug and gave him a look of annoyance. "You, if you're gonna lie at least good at it," Fox chastised. "I know you're not bright enough to pull this off, so tell me the truth, or having your skull rammed into a steel wall will be the least of your worries tonight." The thug paled in fright, especially when Fox's blade glimmered in the light. "And no, I swear this is all R." A beeping sound was heard and the two turned their heads and noticed it was coming from the containment unit. It stops blinking and hisses, releasing some steam from the box. The top half splits open and separates, releasing what looked like an orange-skinned muscular being that was folded up in the fetal position until it raised its head and its eyes glowed red. "What the hell is that?" the thug questioned. "Your cargo." Fox pulls his blade out of the ground and turns from the thug. The hulking creature exits out of the crate and stood at its full height, ranging up to 8 feet 2. Its upper body was a dark orange color minus the green arm bands around its forearm and sporting a mohawk-like hairdo, while its lower body was fully green with black around the ankles. The second thug crawls out of the broken window and also looks at the muscle-bound android. "What is that thing?" "Amazo, a highly advanced cybernetic android with the ability to replicate the powers of super beings." Fox answers as Amazo took 2 steps forward. "What kind of super beings?" Amazo grabs the hull of a barge and lifts it over its head with one arm and rears it back. "Big ones." Amazo chucks it at Fox and the blonde easily leaps over it as it passes by. Unfortunately, the goons weren't as lucky due to them screaming in terror and getting crushed by the 20-ton barge along with the truck, and a fiery explosion occurs as Fox lands back down on the ground. He glances at the fiery scene and grimaces at 2 of the now charcoal bodies coated in fire. Poor bastards," he mumbled before turning his attention back to Amazo. "That wasn't very nice, you know." The stone face's robot didn't say anything and started to slowly walk towards his new target. Okay, the memo was to keep Amazo from being stolen and acquire the head when the android was inactive. Fox mutters as he twirls his blade a few times and gets into a basic kendo stance. "This might be fun." Metal Gear Rising Ost. Rules of Nature. En garde. Fox declares and dashes at the bulky android, performing a horizontal slash that the android blocks the strike with its forearm, but the edge of the blade manages to slightly dig into the fake flesh of the droid. Amazo rears his right arm back and swings downwards at the blonde, who jumps back. The punch makes contact with the concrete and leaves a decent-sized crater from the impact. As soon as he landed on the ground, Fox brings his sword against the concrete and dashes forward as his blade grinds against the concrete, leaving a thin trail as he approached his target and swings upwards. Amazo was able to leap back with only a small cut under its chin. Fox glances back at the bot and his lips curve upwards. "You're smarter than the average machine. Evo really spoke highly of you until you malfunctioned." Amazo didn't reply back but instead brought his hands up, raises them into the air and brings them down onto the ground, causing a fissure to sail towards Fox. His blade glows red and raised it in the air, waiting for the earth-based move to get closer, and swings his sword down, releasing a gust of crimson wind that tears through the ground and cancels out the fissure. Unfortunately for Amazo, it kept coming until it made contact and sent him sailing through the road and inside a barge, leaving a decent-sized hole in it along with a series of slash marks. Maybe I overdid it. Fox wondered as he stroked his chin until the barge started to rise up a little and was chucked at him. He instantly swung his blade downwards and splits it in two before smiling again, as he saw Amazo's glowing red eyes. Then again, I could be wrong. Amazo steps out of the hull with several deep cuts around its body and oil slightly dripping from its chest cavity. Fox brings his arm up and does a "bring it" gesture to the bulky android, who responded by charging forward with its thunderous footsteps echoing throughout the area, and once it closed in, it proceeded to attack Fox with a series of left and right hooks that his foe either weaved around or blocked with his blade, and did it all with a grin on his face. If Amazo had any way of expressing emotions, it would be extremely pissed off at the moment and then attempts to backhand the armor-clad warrior, but Fox backflips away and leaps high into the air and lands onto a barge. "Hey, you don't look so big from where I'm standing," he declared, but then his eyes widened when Amazo jumps up and flies into the air towards Fox. Whoa, it can fly, but that's not all it could do. Its eyes glowed red and fired two laser beams from its eyes, resulting in Fox dodging the blasts but ended up with two holes in his coat. "And fires lasers. Damn it, Evo, did you give enough firepower?" He hops to the left as the beams cut through the barge and up into air to avoid two more blasts. Amazo was suddenly upon him with its fist reared back and strikes him in the chest hard enough to send him flying back at neck-breaking speeds and crash through several crates and slide through the ground. Fox groaned as he tried to regain his bearing in the pile of wood and sat up, rubbing his head and shake the cobwebs out, only for a wooden crate to fly towards him, and he was forced to roll to the left as it shattered against the truck it hit. He sprung back to his feet and cut down two more, and Amazo came zipping down and landing hard on the ground, firing another round of beams that Fox deflects and this time redirects the blasts back at Amazo's eyes, causing it to stagger back as its eyes were permanently damaged. Fox took this opportunity, leaped towards Amazo with his blade positioned back and swings forward. Sling. The head came flying off its shoulder and into the air while Fox landed back with cushionada extended outwards. He stands back up and slowly sheathes his blade, and with a click, the body falls like a rock and he catches the head in his hand. Music ends. "All this trouble over a head," he mumbled while pulling a kunai from his sleeve and flicks it northeast of his direction. A gasp was heard and a blur leaps out of the shadows and lands in front of him, and it happened to be a female with a young woman with a slender, but fit build. She has thick black hair and gray eyes, as well as olive-colored skin due to her heritage being Asian. Her outfit consists of a dark green-colored kimono with shreds and rips along it and tied around her waist, where its length reaches just above her knees, and wore a black bodysuit under it with black knee-length boots that seemed to designed as ninja footwear. Completing her outfit was a white mask, resembling a cat's head with red stripes and a wide grin, in relationship to the Cheshire Cat. "And speaking of trouble, who might you be?" he questioned as the assassin stood up on her feet. "The name's Cheshire and I'm here for that head," she answered. "Oh, which head?" he questioned, getting a slight chuckle from the assassin. "Cute, but I'm here for that android's head. I have clients that are interested in the data it contains and want to exploit it, so we can do this the easy or the hard way." She drew one of her sei and pointed it at him. Fox pondered on this for a bit before putting the head into his coat, but secretly put it into a storage seal to keep it from being damaged. "Bring it." He challenged and Cheshire responded by throwing a kunai directly at his face, but he caught it in between his finger. Cheshire then dashes at him and thrusts her weapon forward, which Fox manages to dodge and blocks a knee strike to his chest. She pivots her foot and twists her body around to deliver a spin kick to his head, but he ducks and flips over her form with no trouble and lands back onto the ground. Nice combination, he complimented before pulling out his sheathed sword off his belt, but you can do better than that. Cheshire narrowed her eyes at his mocking expression and decided to wipe that look off his face, so she sheathed her sai and drew 2 collapsible katana from the back of her belt. You're right, I can, she declared, getting into a dual sword stance while Fox threw off his coat. Nice face, by the way. Fox smirks at the compliment and twirls his sheathed weapon a few times. Thanks, maybe I'll see yours in exchange, he teased, and knew for some odd reason she was smiling slyly behind her mask. Only if you can remove this mask from my face, she replied back before she makes the first move by twirling her blades in a fluid but quick fashion in order to catch him off guard, but she notices the focused look in his deep blue eyes and knew this was going to be an interesting fight. The duel started with her swinging her blades simultaneously in perfect sync while her foe blocked each strike with the sheath. Each time she pressed on with the attack, he only took a few steps back and stopped in place to block or weave around her blades. She drew his blades back and attempts an X slash with both blades, but he manages to block them both and stand his ground. Not bad, you're well taught in the art of swordsmanship, Fox complimented with a smile of approval, but then it changes to one of seriousness, but your technique lacks something. He pushes the sheath upwards, breaking her stance, spins around and strikes her right in the torso with the tip of the sheath. Cheshire gasps from the blunt force that entered into her stomach and made her skid back. She grits her teeth and glares back at the blonde swordsman who still kept his weapon undrawn. Once she recovered, she dashes at him again and engages him in combat. This can't be right, she swings at his head, yet he blocks it before bringing it back and thrusts the second blade towards his chest, but he knocks it away with a lightning quick kick. We're fighting on even terms, yet he hasn't drawn his blade once. If this is the best you've got, you better leave, Missy, as I don't have time to play with you for long, Fox stated, and Cheshire responds by crouching down slightly with her remaining blade drawn back. He sighs and shakes his head before strapping Kusanada back in the loop and drawing it. Fine, I'll humor you and show you the difference in our level of skill. En garde. He dashes towards her and thrusts his blade forward, forcing Cheshire to avoid the tip of the Crimson O katana that, lightly, grazed the side of her mask and made her jump back, but Fox wasn't having it. He swung his blade in an arch that clashed with her blade, but the force behind it came close to making her lose her balance, and she was now put on the defense due to the series of slashes and thrusts he unleashed. She got a few close calls in getting nicked by the sharp edge of her foe's sword. She pushed up against a wall and curses to herself and has to tuck and roll in order to not get cut in half as the blade sliced through to wall with no form of resistance. Cheshire got back up panting with her sword up ready to face him again, only for Fox to sheath his weapon and casually walk back to his coat and pick it up. "Where do you think you're going?" she questioned. Fox looks over his shoulder with a bored expression on his face, which upset her at the fact that he seemed to look down on her like she wasn't even a decent challenge. "I have no need to answer upon," was all he said, and simply walked off, infuriating the young woman who brought her sword up and threw it at him with all her strength at the back of his head. Fox simply deflects it with his armored forearm. "Some people never learn," he mutters before vanishing and appearing before Cheshire with his blade raised over his head and brought it down. Cheshire's instinct screamed at her to jump away, which she did while Kushina slammed into the ground hard enough to actually leave a wicked slash on the concrete. "You missed," she says, only for the blonde to smirk at her. Cheshire wondered why he was smiling until she felt a breeze hit her body and an article of clothing dropped. A thin line split her mask in two and the face wear fell in two pieces to the floor, revealing her shocked face. How did you?" she wondered until another breeze hit her bare skin and paused. "Wait, bare skin?" Cheshire looked down to see her sash holding her kimono closed was cut in two and on the floor, revealing a two-piece bodysuit she wore that hugged her figure like a second skin against her C-cupped, flat yet toned stomach, curved hips, and nice firm that wasn't too big or small. Ah, she covered herself with her arms, blushing in embarrassment and glared at Fox with all the anger she could muster while he chuckles at her. Consider that little stunt I pulled a lesson free of charge. Fox says to the angry assassin while sheathing his blade. If I ever see you again I'll kill you. Cheshire said in a deadly tone before pulling a smoke bomb out and throwing it to the ground, releasing a smokescreen. Once it cleared, she was out of sight. And I look forward to it, Neko-chan. He says while gathering his coat and vanishes from the sight in a flash of yellow, completing his objective for Evo.